over 10,000 millionaires have left the UK.
Yes, I saw this actually. But it's not just millionaires. So this guy was basically saying that it's not just people who bought their house years and years ago and have made so much money. It's the people who have created economies, created so many jobs. They're the ones who are leaving. So HMRC have paid out nearly £1 million to whistleblowers, basically being snitches. And essentially HMRC, they just completely increased the audit. And if she pays the money back, she'll be spared jail. That just absolutely should not happen. If you earn additional income on online platforms like Vinted, eBay, Depop, and you earn over £1,000, the online platforms are obliged to tell HMRC.
Oh, wow.
This does not mean you have to pay tax, but the threshold to pay it has decreased from... Welcome back to the second episode of the podcast. I'm here with Tommy to talk all things tax, all the latest news updates, and just general discussion.
Amazing. Let's start with our first topic of the day. So it seems that HMRC are cracking down on the wealthy tax evaders.
Yeah, absolutely. So they've cracked down. There's actually been an 80% increase in criminal charges this year with very kind of high net worth and very public individuals being targeted, such as Gary Lineker, who I'm sure you know.
I know.
Yeah, so he basically was targeted because they thought that he was avoiding paying tax by claiming that he was a contractor when actually he was self-employed by the BBC. And he actually won that case. So actually he was doing nothing wrong. But yeah, I mean, there's just been a massive surge, I think, with the cost of living crisis at the moment, and people just kind of want to make sure everyone is paying the taxes that they owe. But then the question is, if there are loopholes around, why aren't people entitled to use them? So it's a hard one.
Yeah, I think as well for HMRC, right, it's a great headline because you're going to get a lot of publicity. So if they can go after the people that are very top, then you're going to see other people. So it makes sense why they're trying to do this, yeah. So he got away from it.
Yes, he will. He's not got away with it. He actually won. He said that he actually wasn't a contractor. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's good for him. Good for Gary Lineker.
Wicked. So we've also seen there's been offshore tax fraud investigations have increased.
Yeah.
People kind of offshore will be quite a common tax avoidance scheme, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as the UK tax has been increasing, obviously very wealthy individuals have just been saying, right, we're done here, we're going to move offshore. So HMRC are definitely cracking down on that.
Yeah, I saw an article actually yesterday that was over 10,000 millionaires have left the UK.
Yes, I saw this actually, yeah.
The highest in the world.
But it's not just millionaires. So this guy was basically saying that it's not just people who bought their house years and years ago and have made so much money because they bought it for such a low price. They're basically, this guy's basically saying it's the people who have created economies, created so many jobs. They're the ones who are leaving. And it's very worrying. It's worrying for the economy because these people are so needed, as I just said, to create jobs like so many other people.
Well, yeah, because it creates growth, right? You need entrepreneurs, and we aren't growing at all.
Yeah.
It seems very short-termist, and it's almost like also, I remember this research years ago called the Laffer curve.
Okay.
Where if you keep raising taxes, it gets to a point where actually it's detrimental.
Yeah.
And you actually get less tax.
Yeah.
Look at Ireland. I mean, they've got low taxes and they're always growing.
Look at Dubai.
Yeah.
It's literally,
That's where they were going.
Yeah, they are. You're right. They're all going. They've actually introduced, I think, a little bit of tax now in Dubai. But I mean, they are just a country that shows that you don't have to have crazy high tax in order to have like a flourishing economy. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to weigh up and figure out what the right thing to do is. But
especially when you think services are getting worse, you think like the schools, hospitals, like you wouldn't mind paying more money if you can see, go into good use. And actually, there's an article yesterday, which I think there was a lot of controversy, where the UK have just announced a 300 billion aid package to Ukraine.
yeah.
So it's like you're raising taxes for the British public, but you're getting it offshore. So I think that's going to cause a lot of controversy.
Yeah, I agree. It's a hard one because obviously you've got to help. The UK have a duty to help other countries and people, people in need. But it's a hard pill to swallow. You just want to make sure that you are seeing where your money is going to. But at the same time, the UK, does have an obligation to help others. So again, it's a hard one. It's a really, really tough one.
So topic number 3 today, we're discussing the fraud and scams targeting taxpayers.
Yes. So obviously at the moment, we're nearing the self-assessment deadline and it's prime time for scammers. So there's actually been, I think it's a 17% rise in HMRC scams, and they're mainly talking about rebates. So they're basically kind of sending out fake letters saying, come claim your rebate, send me your bank details and I will give you your rebate. And people are falling for it because obviously people don't want to pay tax, or if they see your rebate, they're like, oh my gosh, give it to me now. It's really hard. And there are so many scammers out there. The technology for them is just too good. And they're just getting so many people. They're just catching so many people. It's a hard one.
So there's been some question marks around HMRC's performance. I think going back to the topic earlier around, you want bang for your buck, right? So they're due to collect maybe a trillion this year, sorry, billion, £1 trillion this year.
Yeah.
Up from 834 billion last year. It's a record, obviously.
Yeah.
But complaints are rising and the services are not been good enough. I mean, we've had a lot of feedback from customers not happy with the penalty system. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with someone who has had to call HMRC and been like, oh my gosh, I got through to them within 5 minutes. Like, no, the queue times are just horrendous. To be honest, people have a lot more questions, so they're going to HMRC, which is good, but they clearly just don't have the staff to have a fully functioning and efficient customer service team. And yeah, I mean, we see a lot of comments and a lot of discussion about how people are so infuriated with HMRC and trying to get through to them. And yeah, it does beg the question of how can they be claiming all this money, how can they be getting all this money in taxes and actually not putting it to their services? Yeah, that is a difficult question.
yeah, it is very frustrating.
Yeah.
And there's a report actually, 5.9 million calls were unanswered last year.
Yeah.
5.9 million.
And actually, I read a really sad article that there were 10 suicides linked to HMRC payments, or I think it was related to HMRC payments. And it could be because these people couldn't get through to HMRC. I'm not saying that was, but it could be that they couldn't make the payments. Maybe they couldn't get through to HMRC to discuss it. We don't know. But I think that they had kind of taken out loans to pay their tax bills. And it's just really important to know that HMRC, I know no one likes paying tax, but HMRC are not trying to make you stressed out and kind of in that sort of really vulnerable position. There are ways that you can kind of pay on account, pay in installments, come and talk to us about it. Exactly. Like, talk to us about it. We can try and figure out a way that you can do this in like a calm way and a not stressful way, because nothing is
Wants to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very good point, actually. So there's also news this week around tax code errors.
Yeah.
So they're saying that on average, this mistake could cost you £900 to the tax code.
Yeah. So tax codes, people always come to me and say, oh, my tax code's changed 3 times in the past year. Why? HMRC are actually, they're quite good with your tax codes. And even if you don't understand the reasons why something has changed, you can try and get through to them to try and understand it. But you do have to keep on top of it, because HMRC, if you start like a side business in the year, HMRC will not know that until you submit your first tax return related to that. So that could mean that it's not HMRC's fault, but you could have an incorrect tax code. So it's just really important to keep on top of it. Speak to us about it if you've got any questions. Also go to HMRC if you think something is wrong. But yeah, keep on top. It is your duty to keep on top of it.
It is, yeah. So big update on the 21st. New legislation went into practice about side hustles, digital platforms. So what exactly does that involve, and what does it entail for people that have side hustles and side incomes?
So what it basically means is if you earn additional income on online platforms like Vinted, eBay, Depop, and you earn over £1,000, the online platforms are obliged to tell HMRC.
Oh, wow.
This does not mean you have to pay tax. Obviously, it depends if you make a profit and, all of that. But if you earn over that £1,000 threshold, the online platforms now legally have to inform HMRC. So there's no need to panic, but it's just worth noting that your information will be passed over to them. And then essentially, if you are required to fill out a tax return, you will have to do that.
So this is really interesting because my wife lives on Vinted. Yeah, she sells regularly. So
As does everyone now, yeah.
it's a great platform, and you put to use your waste clothes. So
Yes.
what does it mean for someone like her? Because I think she probably sells over £1,000 during the year.
Yes.
Obviously, it's cost her to buy those items. It's always less than what she paid. So would she have to pay tax?
No, so she would not have to pay tax if she's not making a profit, but the online platforms will still let HMRC know that she is selling, because you've got to sell a lot of items really to reach that £1,000 mark on these platforms. Maybe not eBay so much, but if you're selling unwanted clothes, from experience, I would have to sell a lot to get to the £1,000 mark. So, and then also if you're doing this as a side hustle, so it's different. If your wife is buying secondhand clothes to sell for a profit, that is a business. So she will be taxed as if it's a business. If it is her personal items that she is clearly selling at a loss, she will not be taxed on them. But HMRC will still know the information. But there's no need to panic. As long as you're on top of your taxes, there's absolutely no need to panic about this.
Amazing. Great.
Yeah.
So we've seen a big push on R&D, and this is something that I see a lot in your comments about R&D claims. HMRC are really scrutinising R&D.
Yeah.
I've seen that patent box relief claims have declined significantly.
Yeah, that's due to the higher scrutiny. People are having to make sure that they completely fill the criteria and eligibility. And yeah, they're very much, they're trying to, as well as increasing taxes, they are also trying to make sure that people are using the reliefs where they are eligible to, but that people aren't taking advantage.
I did see an article a few weeks ago about an amnesty that are offering, HMRC, we've seen this, where they're offering a platform for businesses that have claimed R&D to come forward.
Right.
Basically, they can come clean.
Yeah. And that is really good. And I don't think they're scrutinised for that, are they?
No, there's no penalties. There's no interest in penalties if you do come forward.
They just have to pay the relief back. Yeah. And that's a really good idea.
Yeah. So HMRC and the high-tech tax enforcement, they're cracking down on people's wallets, digital wallets.
Yeah,
on there.
they are. So a lot of people don't know that actually you have to pay tax on Bitcoin. So on your gains from Bitcoin, it's capital gain. So obviously you just have to, it's just like shares. So the profit that you make on selling the Bitcoin is what you have to pay tax on. A lot of people don't know this. I don't think it's tax evasion. I think that people just are not aware about this. And HMRC are really cracking down to the point that, again, they're requesting information from the banks and
wallet holders.
Yes, exactly, from the wallet holders. And that's really important that people know, because you just don't want to be caught out. You absolutely don't want to be caught out. You want to be doing it correctly and just pay your taxes on your profits.
And you can use the Pi app to file for free.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, this is a really interesting story I saw you cover a few weeks ago about whistle payment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So HMRC have paid out nearly £1 million to whistleblowers. If people know about others who are kind of withholding taxes, not filing their tax returns, basically being snitches. And it's really difficult because, a lot of people have a lot of resentment. If they're paying their taxes, everyone else should be paying their taxes. So they've managed to pay out nearly £1 million in whistleblower payments because people are just like, I've had enough. I'm paying my taxes. Everybody else should be as well. I actually think it's a good incentive. I think it's a good initiative that they're doing. I'm going to say snitches get stitches. But I do feel like in these tough times, it's hard. It's a hard pill to
You'll pay your fair share.
Exactly. Everyone should be. That's why people are so kind of invested in the high net worth individuals who are being caught out. Everyone has to be treated the same.
So there's a HMRC benefit that not a lot of people are aware of with the marriage allowance.
Yeah. So that's the marriage allowance. So that relates to people who are married or in a civil partnership who can actually share 10% of the personal allowance. So if one partner is earning below the £12,570 personal allowance, they can transfer 10% of their allowance, so £1,260 to their spouse, which means that they obviously get a slightly higher personal allowance, which means that they can save on tax. And the maximum tax they'd be able to save on that is £252. So it's just like a good little kind of tax tip to know on how to save a bit of extra cash, because every little helps.
I guess, is it just for 1 year or can they go back multiple years?
You can actually backdate it for 4 years. So if you didn't know about it until now, you can backdate it if your circumstances kind of would allow you to pay that benefit. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of news recently about child trust funds.
Yes.
Right.
So there's a lot of heat in the news at the moment because many people do not know that they have child trust funds. So if you were born between 2002 and 2011, child trust fund would have been opened for you. Essentially worked a little bit like the ISA that is today, and people could have like £2,000 in there and have no idea that it's sitting there. So you should always speak to HMRC, or I think there's actually an online portal that you can see if you have a child trust fund that you didn't know about to reclaim this money.
Because I read there's actually 670,000 unclaimed accounts.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize there was that many. But yeah, I mean, it's insane. As I said, it's £2,200 is the average unclaimed. So it could be even more than that. And it's just really good for people to be aware of this. I mean, so after 2011, this benefit turned into the junior ISA, which is why it kind of stopped in 2011. But yeah, it's good for everyone to know that they might be entitled to a, nice bit of cash.
I saw a lot in the news recently about fraud with COVID.
Yeah.
COVID was a very difficult time. HMRC were really kind of good on this. They really gave a lot of grants, a lot of money to people that needed it. A lot of people abused that scheme, and it's now coming to roost.
Yeah. They're saying it's £24 million of fraud has been uncovered by mainly gang members who were just kind of claiming these reliefs with obviously no reason to. And they've completely clamped down on it now. And there have been multiple arrests made. And it's just such a shame because COVID was such a hard time. And as you said, HMRC were really amazing. There was obviously the furlough and they were really good with people paying their taxes. There were delays. And it's just such a shame. There's always people that will take advantage. It's just the way of life. But at least they've managed to kind of crack down on it now, get a hold of it, arrest those who are committing the crimes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of news recently about small businesses struggling.
Yes.
And they survived COVID and they survived that really difficult period, and it was just so difficult for people to get through. And now with these tax rises, with business rates and national insurance thresholds,
absolutely,
a lot of businesses now are really struggling.
So the killer at the moment is the increase in the employer NI, which is going in April from 13.8%.
I think it's really frustrating because those that did survive COVID and they're still trading, it was a very difficult period. They managed to break through that. They're now really struggling with this new tax that really kind of impacts those smaller businesses as the increase in the national insurance.
Yeah, that is really going to affect so many small businesses because not only has the actual percentage increased, but the threshold to pay it has decreased from 9,100, I'm pretty sure it is, to 5,000. So this is just going to make staff costs so much more expensive for all employers, but particularly the small businesses. And it's just such a shame. And actually, I read recently that it's like the hospitality sector that are going to be potentially the worst hit, and they actually really struggled during COVID, obviously, because everything was closed, no one was going out. And now they've got these tax hikes, and are they even going to survive? Who knows?
So there's a news update about this week for HMRC trying to help pensioners now. What exactly was that?
Yeah, so HMRC have set up a new helpline to help pensioners submit their self-assessments. I mean, given the way that everything's gone, very tech-based, and pensioners just might not be able to keep up, we don't want them to be left behind. And HMRC has seen that and has kind of created this helpline to help them, which is really, I think it's really, really important and amazing that they've done that.
HMRC this week coming out and saying they're going to target high earners.
Yes.
They will increase audits and compliance for the people that are high net worth. So I think this leads back into the exodus of millionaires in the UK and entrepreneurs and stuff. They're just really we're targeting people that really at the top of the ladder. So what impact will it all have to people that are, the high earners and they're doing really well?
I think that it'll just be another push out of the door. I feel like that will just be another reason why they'll just feel like they're not being spurred on by the government, by HMRC. And we need them to want to stay in the UK. They're creating so much growth for the economy, so many jobs, like thousands of jobs for people. We can't just have them all go. And even though I do think it's very important that people are treated equally, so it's the same process, I do feel like they should be encouraging growth. I mean, they're saying that when the EIS was £10 million, so the Enterprise Investment Scheme was at £10 million instead of at £1 million, there was so much more growth. And just for an overview of the Enterprise Investment Scheme, it was when you could pay 10%.
It's really confusing because with Labour, you hear on one side, Keir Starmer is really saying he wants to support businesses. He wants UK to lead the way in AI.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, he's lowering thresholds and reliefs for schemes like EIS, raising taxes. So I guess he needs to make it clear that, he needs to follow through with what he's saying. He needs to have policies that actually support businesses. And I don't really see that coming out. Do you see any policies that are supporting entrepreneurs and businesses?
Not really. I just think there's been a real kind of decrease in business confidence. I think that it's so important. Yeah, as we mentioned before, many millionaires are leaving, and the important millionaires are the ones that are creating growth in the economy. And I can't see any kind of tax benefit that has been introduced by the Labour government for these entrepreneurs. It's just quite worrying because they've got to be implementing something to encourage these people to stay and encourage them to kind of keep continuing to create, these amazing businesses. So they're going to have to change something.
And we talked earlier about the impact on these rises that we're seeing businesses close. Reading reports, there's so many businesses like Next, as usually profitable in these big legacy British brands, already struggling now with these tax rises. What I don't understand is business confidence is at an all-time low. The economy, there's no growth, taxes are rising. The labour market's freezing, jobs are really, really not out there. Where do you see the country go in terms of business? Where do you see this leading the next couple of years? Do you see us growing or do you see us not?
I see it being very, very stagnant. I feel like in terms of businesses, as I said, there's nothing really to encourage them to stay in the UK. I think we're going to continue to see a mass exodus of UK created businesses. I also think on a, I don't want to say lower level, but not talking about entrepreneurs, talking about, the employed people like us, like everybody. I feel like there's not really an incentive for them to earn more. I think that the personal allowance has stayed stagnant for far too many years, which means that people, if they were earning £12,000 a year last year and now they're earning 13,000 or 14,000 a year, they're going to be paying more and more tax, and the personal allowance is not growing, it's not increasing in line with inflation and in line with salary increases. And I think that is a really important thing to kind of be aware of, which is
Self-tax.
Yeah. And it's just a case of you've got to encourage people to grow. And they're almost, I think, encouraging people to remain stagnant.
And I think, again, a lot of industries are really struggling right now. We're hearing from the hospitality sector, they're struggling. And another big one is the farmers.
Yes.
Inheritance tax.
Yes. So inheritance tax, everyone has their opinion about inheritance tax to start with. One major thing that the Labour government introduced was the abolition of the agricultural business relief, which was essentially if you owned farms, you were exempt from inheritance tax. That now is limited to £1 million. So anything over that £1 million is subject to inheritance tax.
Yeah, it really is. And another, again, really key industry to the UK education, private schools.
Yes.
A very controversial topic.
Yeah.
The new VAT.
Yeah.
We're seeing schools closed down in record numbers.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
So I actually did a video on this and I got a lot of comments coming from both sides. And a lot of people were saying that this is only going to affect the rich. The rich, they're the only people that send to private schools in the first place. So they're the only ones that are going to be affected. But actually, there are a lot of people in my comment section that were saying that they came from working class backgrounds and their family, their parents saved everything and just chucked it at their education. They just saw that as the best investment they could give to their children. Well, the VAT being introduced to the fees will just make that completely unattainable. So actually, the rich are always going to be able to afford these fees. It's affecting the people who now, it's just completely unaffordable for them. And I just think that as well, Labour haven't thought about the consequence of where these children are going to go. They're going to be filtering into the state school system, which is already completely underfunded, and it's just going to create a bigger issue.
Businesses are citing that the tax burdens are a barrier to expansion.
Yeah.
The declining jobs creation and the job market is declining. Look, taxes have risen significantly in the last 10 years. The HMRC collected around 400 billion 10 years ago, and now it's nearly 800 billion. Services have got worse, waiting times at hospitals, more crime. I don't understand why they keep trying to push this tax raises, tax the rich, when ultimately the government don't do well with the tax anyway. They don't perform well. So do you think they should follow the kind of Dubai model where, lowering taxes? Like Ireland did it and it worked really well for Ireland.
Yeah. I think it's a really good way to increase wealth in the country, but it's incredibly hard. And I do not know how they would do this to go from a country that has so many different taxes to kind of decrease all of them. I don't know how they would go about it, but I really do think it would benefit. I think that companies, the increase of corporation tax to 25%, I think that's just going to really affect so many companies, which will therefore affect so many jobs. I think that they should try to implement a lower tax system, but I have no idea how they will even go about that.
I think we always talk about rising taxes and raising taxes to improve services. No one talks about decreasing costs, right? If you're in a business and it's leaking money and it's losing money and that loss is increasing, the deficit increases every year.
Yeah.
Debt to GDP went from 60% to 120%. Why don't we start looking at where we can save money? In the US now, you have the DOGE, the government of efficiency. They have a $2 trillion debt they're trying to reduce down. Surely there's some money in that £834 billion that they're spending that it could maybe save money rather than just trying to keep it pushing it onto people. Because I think the more money you give the government, the more they seem to lose.
It's a hard one. And then going back to what we were talking about before, and I do think that the UK has a duty to help other countries. I'm not saying that I do. But, then there's a lot of talk about, okay, if all the services are going down, why are they giving 300 million, I think you said, to the Ukraine, which I think they should be giving to the Ukraine.
300
billion to the UK, to the Ukraine.
$3 billion a year.
I really do think that they should be helping the Ukraine. It's just, again, it's very difficult. Like, if they can give that amount of money, surely they can do something else within the UK. Surely they can reduce costs somewhere. It doesn't really make much sense. And you would just hope that, I mean, maybe with the new Labour government, maybe they'll have new advisors who could kind of help them, you would hope. But I do feel like they need to change something, because, as you said, it's so true. They can't just continue to increase taxes and decrease efficiency. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, and I think the public now, I saw a poll the other day where Reform are actually 1% behind Labour.
Yeah.
Because you've got some government that was so awful. I mean, they doubled the tax burden, they come with debt to GDP. Labour come in and they're just doing the same. There's no real alternative.
Yeah.
And I think people are looking for someone that actually will come through and maybe, like, again, similar to Trump, right? It's like, look, we want a genuine alternative that won't just be like, they say, like, there's left and right, etc. But I don't see any difference with these two governments. So I've got a question from a member of the public who have asked. They said they want to save their children.
Yes.
What's a good tax efficient way to save for their young child?
So this is, a big topic at the moment. Loads of people are asking, how they can help their children save for their future. The number one tip that I say is ISAs. Okay, I say that for adults, I say that for children. So there is a junior ISA that you can invest in for your children. It's completely tax-free. You have an annual limit of £9,000. I'd rather say though, if you don't use that limit, you cannot backdate it. So once, the 5th of April comes, it's kind of gone, and then you start again. And essentially what you can do is you can either put the money into a cash ISA where the interest builds up tax-free, or you can invest it for them. And, the growth, the profits on the shares is completely tax-free.
So, question here from a viewer that has some savings.
Yeah.
And obviously the saving rates are slightly falling down, and they want to know what's the best option for someone that's got some savings.
Okay, good question. My favorite thing to advise people to invest in is an ISA. It's an individual saving account. You have an annual limit of £20,000 a year, and every April that gets kind of cut off. So if you haven't used that limit, you have to start again. You can't backdate it, essentially. My next tip is a pension, because you get real good tax release from investing in a pension, and it's just really good to save for the future. But you cannot access this money until pension age, which is increasing to 57. So you must be aware of that, but that's why I always say ISAs first.
Amazing, great advice. I think definitely with the stocks and shares, I think the analysed rate the last 20 years is around 10% per year. So you actually get a really good return on that.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea.
So Tommy, we have a few questions that have come through about how, the different functionalities of the app. So the first question is, can the app be used for people like me who earn their living over in Europe, so pay tax there?
Oh, 100%. So it's actually one of our biggest audiences, remittance spaces in the SA 109 form. HMRC actually sending people our way because our app can cater for any income across the world. So we've been downloaded in 169 countries worldwide. And if you have to file a return in the UK, no matter where you are in the world, our app can cater for that.
Amazing. So another question that has actually come through a couple of times is, does the app work with crypto or exchanges?
Yeah, so we had a massive partnership deal with eToro. And on the back of that, we built up the features in our app to submit capital gains. So they include shares and crypto. It's very straightforward. Our caters for bank interest and dividends as well now in the app. So if you've got shares and stocks that actually you're buying and selling, and you've also got some income from dividends, our app can handle that as well. So it can handle all income streams.
Amazing. So helpful. Right, let's talk new updates within the app. There have been so many new updates. Can you just talk us through them, the ones that you think will be the most beneficial for your users?
Yeah, great. So we've been working really hard this quarter. We've released a massive update around invoicing. So you can now send digital invoices to your customers. That's been a big update we've been working on. And we also now have dividends and interest into the app. So around 2 million people in the UK have to declare their interest, declare their tax allowance. That's not in the app, and you can do that digitally as well. So it's all automated. We are working hard on property. That should be out soon.
Yeah.
And we'll work this year on improving the app and then more incomes as they come in. So the big updates are interest and the invoice maker.
Amazing. Great. So this week has been a really exciting week for Pi. We are talking now to the winner of the Pitch Battle UK for Startup Grind. So, what an amazing achievement. Can you kind of tell us a bit about what you had to do and how you felt and what made you win?
Yeah, really buzzing. Last week we entered the competition. We first of all had to get selected down to the last 10 to the finalists in the UK, and you had to pitch your business. And we really feel like tax is a big bone to people. It causes confusion, anxiety, and there's no real solution. So Or we were up against some really good competition, and it was really close, but we won both the audience vote and the judges' vote. We now proceed forward to the European semi-final, where we're up against the best startups in the whole of Europe, and then the winner goes to test in the world final.
Wow, where's that?
So that's in America.
Oh my God, amazing.
So yeah, really exciting, and I'm really pleased that it's been a real team effort. So I'm really grateful. So it's a very exciting time.
Very exciting. So Pi has just seen incredible growth over the past few months. Can you just tell us more about the numbers, how many downloads, users, anything you can tell us about it?
Yeah, so we're really experiencing exponential growth. We built Pi up to be scalable, to be a self-service model. So once you build a great product, it's a free market and the best product wins. So customers are coming to the app, using it to find a return for free, find it really easy and telling their friends. In the last month alone, we've had 10,000 downloads.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, we've seen 588% quarter-on-quarter user growth.
Oh my gosh.
It's really taken off now. So it's kind of caught us by surprise, but ultimately, we've worked really hard in building a great proposition. The app's really well designed, really easy to use, really quick to use, and it's free.
Do you ever find that people download, onboard themselves onto the app and then submit kind of that day? Or is it that they take their time? How does it normally work?
We honestly have people that submit in minutes. They're on board, and we see the download date, and then we see the submission date, and it's minutes.
Oh, wow.
It's really quick.
I mean, that clearly shows that this is needed. It's like people are just trying to find how to do it, and then they find your app, they have all the information ready to go, input it, and off it goes.
Yeah, so what we've tried to do is digitalize the whole process and automate it all. So no longer do you need to get your paperwork and get spreadsheets and enter your totals. The app does it all for you. And we're always improving as well. Every single week, we're getting better, faster, we get more efficient. So we're seeing that in our downloads and our conversion rates and the speed of conversion submissions. And yeah, we're really proud of the app and trying to get better. So
yeah, I mean, it is an amazing app. It is really amazing.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.